The history of the Essex United Church has its roots in the story of early Methodism in Canada. Essex Centre came into being with the coming of the Canada Southern Railway in 1872. During the summer months of 1874, Reverend Brown, the presiding elder of the Episcopal Methodist Church, came to see the Essex group, and it was decided that they should have a place of worship in the village. The place selected was on Talbot Street, known today as the Society Shop, St. Vincent de Paul Store. At first, the service attracted an audience of 20 and sat on wooden benches. Harrison Thornton, a farmer and lay preacher, came to town to hold Sunday services. George Wilson erected a stone on the west side of the tracks, and the upper floor was fitted out for a hall. Here, the Methodist Episcopal congregation established regular services in connection with the Cotham Circuit. Reverend A.E. Adams was the minister. The main supporters of the church at this time were the Robinson families, Matthew Hall, William Church, Thomas Rush, and John Millen. The first Sunday school in Essex had an attendance of 12. In 1875, when the Methodist Episcopal Church was erected, John Millen was the superintendent. In 1876, the heads of these Canada Methodist families conceived the idea of building a brick church on Gordon Avenue. This church was called Grace Methodist Church. A beautiful church costing $4,000 was built, and it was dedicated on October 26, 1876. The names of the men on the board of trustees that made this happen were Timothy Jones, George Matthews, James R. Oliver, J.B. Belfry, William Cody, John M. Hicks, and Isaac Thornton. In that year, Timothy Jones passed, and James Naylor, who lived in the country and was a member of the Woodsley Church, joined the Essex Centre Church and became a trustee in place of Mr. Jones. In 1884, the Methodist Episcopal John Millen was the lay delegate for this group that helped organize the basis of the Union, united with the Canada Methodist Church, and they held their united services on Medora Avenue, the former Methodist Episcopal Church. At this time, it was found that neither church was large enough to accommodate the united congregation. So on June 2, 1884, a committee was made up of Fred Robinson, James Naylor, B.M. Brisbane, J.M. Hicks, and John Millen were tasked to raise the funds to build an addition to the brick church on Gordon Avenue. This would give the seating capacity of 600. It was completed in 1885. Reverend Frank Shaw took charge of the united congregation. The union of these aforementioned churches was affected in 1884 with the amalgamation of the Sunday schools had held their sessions in the former Canada Methodist Church. The Ladies' Aid Society was organized in 1884 in the Methodist Church. Lydia Trimble Mission Band was organized November 10, 1889 by Mrs. Lydia A. Trimble. The Women's Missionary Society in the Methodist Church was organized in 1890 with 17 members. The Epworth League was active in 1896. The League was mainly a youth group which met during the week for their meetings and social activities. This group would later be renamed the Young People's Union. They were responsible for recreation evenings, socials, and organizing a basketball club. This society continued until 1945. The Tom Hood class was named after a young man called Tom Hood. He was very active among the young people in the Presbyterian Church. He entered the ministry and later became a missionary in 1899.
Well, I'm third generation of the Highland family, which came here in the late 1890s from Ottawa area, and my grandfather settled in this area as part of the church. I was born in 1946. It's just been a privilege to be a part of this congregation.
In 1902, the ladies' aid dues were 15 cents quarterly. The membership was 86. On the morning of August 10th, 1907, the church would never be the same. There was a horrific explosion in Essex. A car of dynamite en route from Black Rock near Buffalo to Amherstburg exploded while parked near the freight shed. The cause was later determined to be poor handling while shipping. Unfortunately, the Grace Methodist Church on Gordon Avenue was more or less a wreck. The congregation met the next day and began to lay plans for a new church. What was left of the church was purchased by a group of people who erected it on Walker Road at the northern limits of Harrow. This church still stands today. The Women's Missionary Society was instrumental in raising funds after the explosion in 1907. One of the successful projects to raise these funds was publishing a cookbook containing their choice of recipes. A favorite project in the early years was collecting newspapers and selling them to a Windsor dealer. Another was aluminum demonstrations held at one of the members' home, accompanied by a pancake supper. The Ladies' Aid had subscribed $2,000 to help with the new church building, to be paid over a 5-year period. On October 28, 1907, it was motioned to purchase the site of the former Naylor grist mill and first electric light plant in town on Talbot Street from E. Naylor for $450. A committee was formed to plan the new church, which is the church that is now closing. The members were J. E. Stone, J. M. Hicks, J. A. Hicks, Jace Robinson, Fred Robbins, O. H. Bricker, Dr. J. W. Bryan, E. L. Puck, Dr. Donnelly, Dr. Snell, R. W. Anglin, C. E. Naylor, Arthur Wilson, George Rose, G. W. Whiteman, Dr. A. W. King, and Pastor Reverend S. Aramikvedi. The first payment of $400 had already been made by May 1908. There was a ceremonial laying of the cornerstones that took place on Victoria Day, May 25, 1908, and was witnessed by a large crowd. Reverend Jasper Wilson of Leamington, chairman of the Windsor District, was in charge of the 2.5 hour service. A platform was constructed along the front of the church for the people who were to take part in the service. This particular cornerstone was laid by Mrs. J. E. Hunter on behalf of the building committee. Mrs. William Church, on behalf of the Ladies' Aid, laid the second stone. The third stone was laid by J.E. Stone on behalf of the Epworth League. C.E. Naylor laid the fourth stone on behalf of the Sunday School. A.H. Clark, KCMP, laid the fifth stone on behalf of the trustee board. The sixth stone was laid by Ara Brent, Grand Master on behalf of the Grand Lodge of Ontario IOOF. After the laying of the cornerstones, the women were presented with silver trowels, while the men were given gold-headed canes. To end the celebrations, there was a meal prepared by the Ladies' Aid and served to the large crowd at the town hall. The cost of the building was a whopping $22,000. During the years 1914 to 1917, the society owned and operated a large dining hall on the Essex Fairgrounds and served meals on the 3 days of the fair. Some of the women would go in early to serve breakfast to the men employed at the fair. Countless pies were baked and much food prepared. Unfortunately, this wouldn't last when a tornado came along and shattered the dining hall. Church union was consummated in Essex on June 14, 1925, with the Reverend J. H. Johnston of the Methodist congregation and Reverend J. G. Reed of the Presbyterian congregation. Attending these meetings of the Union Committee, the first meeting of the Essex Presbytery of the United Church of Canada was held in Essex United Church on September 10, 1925. In 1925, the Women's Association was formed. The following year, the congregation decided, due to an increase in members, to renovate and enlarge the church and facilities. June 28, 1926, the official board accepted the estimate of $18,000 to install a new organ.
It's a Cassavet organ, and the Cassavet brothers from Quebec worked and set this organ up, and it was the last one that they set up. It's a 3-manual organ. Anyway, it's a beautiful organ. It will be 100 years old in 2027, and we love to hear it when Diana plays it on Sundays.
A new roof, a church gallery, another Sunday school room, and a new heating system. The Willing Workers was a Bible class organized about 1929 and functioned as well as the ladies' organization until 1942. The Canadian Girls in Training is a Christian organization for teenage girls from 12 to 16. The group was active in the church from 1930 to 1966. The organization stressed Bible study, personal growth, crafts, hikes, summer camps, and weekend camps. The group dismantled after it was determined that numerous activities at the high school took more of the girls' time. From 1931 to 1935, bazaars were popular. The Sunshine Mission Band and the Baby Band were organized in 1931 and continued as a church organization until 1962, and plays were put on in the town hall and sponsored by the Ladies' Aid. During the war, the Blood Donor Clinic was held in the church basement, with the Women's Association joining other ladies' organizations in town in serving lunches to the donors. With the cooperation of the Women's Institute, many hundreds of pounds of jam were made in the church kitchens for shipment overseas. Under the Canadian Red Cross, the Women's Association had contributed largely to the church in many ways. They paid off the mortgage on the parsonage and looked after it as well.
My parents brought me here in 1942, and in 54, Reverend Facey was the minister, and I joined the church then. And in 1960, Reverend Geiger was here, and he married my husband and I. And in 63, and in 65, and in 66, I had my children baptized here.
Around 1944, the young men's Sunday school class united with the young ladies' Sunday school class under the leadership of Mrs. Loretta Price and formed the Baraka Philithia. Other organizations that were created were as follows. The Friendship Club was organized in the church in 1946 by Mrs. Harold Parr. They were responsible for the flowers in the church, the junior choir, and the nursery. In 1951, the Sunday school and other facilities became so inadequate that at the June 25, 1951 meeting of the official board, it was decided that a committee with the power to add to the number to plan a Christian education building and secure estimates of cost. Perry Vanston and a representative of each of the 3 women's organizations were added to this committee. It was finalized in 1956. The plan provided a Christian education hall complete with stage and double row of classrooms and a new vestry. In place of the old vestry, a hall would be put there, a church parlor, a kindergarten and beginners department. A boardroom plus washroom facilities were also added to the building. The final cost of the building was $120,000. In an effort to avoid debt over a long period of time and to avoid paying large amounts of interest, they decided to bring in the Wells organization to conduct the campaign to raise the necessary funds by monthly subscriptions. This was done prior to the actual start of building and proved to be successful, resulting in the whole project being paid for in a couple of years. The cornerstone was laid May 22, 1957. The building was completed by the end of the year with the official opening dedication January 19, 1958. Approximately 1957, during the ministry of Reverend D. Fold, the following church organizations were formed: the Guides and Brownies, the Cubs and Scouts, the Tyro Club, the Adult Bible Class, and the United Churchmen.
We're all members of their churches, so we got a double dose of companionship and good times doing church activities and, of course, our scouting activities.
Ray and I came here in 1961 to join the Essex United Church. It was 2 years after we were married. We had both been raised Presbyterian, so coming to the United Church, I think for our parents was, well, anyway, we came, and I know we've never regretted it. Our 3 children were all baptized here. 2 of them were married here.
In January 1962, the Women's Association, the Women's Missionary Society, the Wilson Russell Evening Auxiliary, and the Friendship Club merged into one organization known as the United Church Women. The first president was Mrs. Harvey Gills. The women have promoted the spirit of friendship in the congregation and have been the backbone to the church, serving the community in many ways.
I ended up joining the church, I think in about 1967, and was one of the youngest people to join the board in 1968 as part of the youth committee, and I've pretty well been on the board since. chaired the board a few years and was asked to be a trustee, and I've been a trustee since about 1991.
I have a lot of happy memories, and I was involved in UCW and other organizations.
1974 marked the centennial of the Sunday school activity in Essex. The United Sunday School was the product of three distinct sources: the Methodist Episcopal School, the Canada Methodist School, and Presbyterian School. There was a fire in 1976. It was very serious. New support beam had to be made to support the sanctuary. Ken Salter, who is still a member, was instrumental in putting in metal support, which were covered with wood. Many thanks to Ken.
Pretty well everybody in the community knows Ken and the Salter boys.
Watching him do the renovation job in the front of the church was pretty exciting also.
And the tower, yes. He was, and Don Teskey, they were both 80 years old, and they were able to redo that. They had scaffolding up, and they were up in the tower and redid all the plastering there. It was.
And those watching him were all having a heart attack.
One can still smell the smoke on a humid day in the church where there is still carpet. After the fire, Barry Robinson was called. The church school grew again, and a youth group was started under the leadership of Mary Webb.
I started a youth group, and the youth group did a lot of things.
She had several folks assist her.
Neil Macbeth here, and there was Claire Kitchen and other people that came and helped me with them all, and were ushers, met everybody at the church before they came in, and walked them to their seat and gave them the bulletin and sat down. And after they were finished, they sat down in the front of the church, and those are good memories.
This group lasted for several years.
Well, we moved to Essex in '73. I got involved with the Sunday school here and then into the youth group big time. We did do a lot of stuff. I've been on the worship committee now for
100 years.
It was only supposed to be for a little bit. They wanted somebody young. Unfortunately, I'm the youngest one in the bunch.
From that time, the church has enjoyed the ministry of several ministers: Reverend Ross Williams, Reverend Doug Michel, and Reverend Doreen Canavan. The church at that point did a survey of membership and finances and determined that it would not afford full-time ministry. It was not possible to find another United Church in the area that wanted to share a minister, so half-time ministry was started. Reverend Margaret Spencer and Reverend Jim Head each have served in that ministry.
We got here in, was it
72 or 73.
Yeah, 72 or 73.
I think 3 probably.
We had moved out to Essex. We still continued to go back to church we went along to Westminster, and we went back there for a little bit. And our daughter was baptized there, and then after she was baptized, we thought, this is silly, we should be going to Essex. Essex always feels like home when I come in. We've had many wonderful experiences here. Jim decided to go into ministry. When I married him, I thought he was headed that way then, and I told him not to marry me if he was going to be a minister, because I wouldn't make a very good minister's wife.
Oh, yes, you would.
And then later, after we adopted our son, we had a daughter and we adopted our son, I said to him, if you want to go into ministry, I'm okay with it now, and we can manage. He was teaching then. We can manage. And he said, no, I'm doing a ministry where I am. Well, he was still very involved with the church, and eventually he did go into ministry.
Recently, very limited part-time ministry has been offered by Reverend Lexley Chamberlain and Reverend Dow Woods. Even with half-time ministry, we have successfully operated several vacation Bible camps.
We used to have the kids come in the morning, we fed them lunch, we had breaks, fed them lunch, and had another break in the afternoon, and they left about 4 o'clock.
A youth choir.
I became involved in music with the junior choir and the senior choir. And Evelyn Taggart, who was here for a number of years, and I had a group of children called, young girls called the Explorers Group, and that was fun.
Community barbecues and fireworks. Hosted the community food bank. We sponsored refugee families over the years. We had murder mysteries which brought people together. Many bus trips were organized by Wilma and John, which were always fun. Rummage sales brought all kinds of people through our doors. The church has always been a place where there was laughter in the kitchen as we worked together at suppers, and always a place where we could find support in difficult times.
We were married in the Catholic Church, but Doug always belonged here, and we've been involved in this church more so in the last 10 to 12 to 15 years than before.
Yeah.
We ran the craft show and
Coffee and tea after
the service.
Yeah. Well, how do you get to know people a little bit? And Muriel Neese, everybody remember Muriel?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Muriel had a group called Serendipity.
Yep.
And we came on Sunday nights and went to Serendipity. And there was some kind of a program that was laid up. There was always a story about something serendipitous that happened to somebody.
The United Church Women, as it was known over the last 50 years, was always important to the functioning of the church. In the last few years, they held their meetings at Ealer Lodge as a lot of the ladies had moved from their homes into Ealer. Raider Cox developed this idea, and Holly Boyle and Aline Hatt finished up serving the group as co-leaders.
5 people went into ministry from this church. The Reverend Donald Parr, his dad was a minister here. He went into ministry, and Phil Newman became a minister in the United Church. Then Ann Naylor became a minister in the United Church, and then Deb Kiger became a minister in the United Church, and myself, Jim Hatt, I became a minister in the United Church. Doug Arnold over here has done yeoman's work, and we've found the place would have closed down 2 or 3 years ago if it wasn't for both of them.
Yes, we moved to Essex in '73, and our son was baptized here, and 3 years later our daughter was baptized here. But we came here, we were at Epworth and Kingsville, but we came here because we were in Essex, so we thought we should come here to church.
Just after I got here, Gerald Calhoun said, would you like to go on the board? I said, well, what will I be doing? Well, I don't really know, but I'm sure they'll tell you when you get there. And that's how it started.
In 2004, I met the late Wilma Fowdry, and she asked me if I'd like to join the church. And I found out very quickly that I fitted in because I made the best cup of tea they'd ever tasted.
That's right, true.
I started going in the early 80s, and I became a member, and I did Sunday school for a little bit. I got on the board. I've been on the board for many, many years. But it seems the niche that I've been in for the last quite a number of years is the outreach committee. We sponsored refugees. We held warming stations for the Santa Claus parade. We sent bales of clothing and supplies out to a reservation in northern Saskatchewan. We filled our sanctuary with a concert that was arranged to have the Windsor Symphony come in.
But finally the decision was made in 2023 that the church would cease operation in October of 2024. Karen and Doug Arnold and Molly Bowman, along with a few board members, have kept the church alive.
As I look around the room and I see who's here, and then you start remembering those that aren't here any longer, and then you wonder about some of the traditions that we used to have, and if they were still here, would we have more people still members of the church? I don't know. At times I can argue it either way. The church tried to change with what was thought to be the way everybody was thinking and going, and that's too bad. I mean, I have two boys, and neither one of them is regular churchgoers by any means.
The time to close this phase of our ministry has come. The church has been a pillar and instrumental in bringing the community together with the dedication from its members and all who served. It will be a memory that will be treasured.
Structures and leaders were not able to continue, he knew it was time for a change.
You give thanks this morning for 150 years of Essex United Church, striving for justice and peace in our community.
We move on to work with new partners to work for love and justice in this world.
And a community that will be missed.